Hi, I'm Maggie. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist. I have degrees in psychology, theology, and marriage and family therapy, and a national certification in dialectical behavioral therapy. In this video, I'm not seeking to diagnose anyone. I'm only willing to offer insight into situations like these. Hi, I see Nina's in here. Hi, Nina. Hopefully we're ready for shadow work. Sorry, I had to cancel last week. We had a patient that was quite upset, and I ended up with a rotator cuff injury. So I apologize for missing out. So I always want to start Shadow Work Wednesday with a quote from Jung. And I think this one is apropos. So he says, I found sometimes that it is of great help in handling such a case to encourage them to express their peculiar contents either in the form of writing or drawing and painting. There are so many incomprehensible intuitions in such cases, fantasy fragments that rise from the unconscious for which there is almost no suitable language. I let my patients find their own symbolic expressions for their own mythology. So I think that's important because we're going to do two things today. One is we're going to go over a couple more journal prompts. Okay. Hi, Leon. Thanks for coming in. Hi, Dee. Thanks for coming. So we're going to go over a couple more of the journal prompts as we're progressing through each session. If anybody hasn't watched the previous sessions, it'd probably be good to go back just because we're adding on as we go. So we're going to go over a couple journal prompts, but I also want to do something because I had a little bit of feedback that sometimes when I'm talking about this stuff that it's a little far out, it's a little out there. And sometimes when I'm talking about it, I know what I'm trying to say, but I'm not necessarily expressing it very well, or making it relatable or understandable. Sometimes when people are analytical thinkers, they want to know the whys and what's behind what we're doing, not just the how, right? They want to know the why and what beyond the how to get through this stuff. So I want to go through the journal prompts first, just so we have that out of the way. And then if people, I want to talk about what is confusing or what is hard to understand, or even if people have been following along all this time and then they're like, what exactly is a shadow? I want to be able to, especially as we've only got a few more weeks left, I want to make sure that I'm expressing what it is that we're trying to do in a way that's relatable and understandable. So Leon says that's what gets on my nerves about Jung. He loads his sentences to the max, plus the paragraphs. Yeah, he knew he was smart and he liked to say it, right? And because in my undergrad and graduate classes, I took so many classes on Jung that sometimes I forget that the first time I heard about him, I was like, what a quack, what a crackpot. What are you even talking about? So I have to remember that, especially when people are, there are several people that watch this content who were recommended to come watch this content because they have some stuff to work through, and I don't want it to be a waste of your time. I'm very watchful of people's time. That's why I always start right on time. I try to keep things to a certain amount of time. Consistency is really, really important. But I want to make sure that it's worth something to you. Yes, this is a free therapeutic type service to you because I mean all it costs you is clicking the like button and watching the content and sharing it so that it gets more views. Um, I want YouTube to pick up the bill for that. And so the only thing I need to do for that is, to get enough subscribers and to have enough interaction, which is free to you guys. And that's how I want to do things. I don't ever think money or finances or even time. YouTube helps when people don't have time or a set schedule too. I don't want any of those things to be barriers to people. Right? I think it's unfair and it's ridiculous. So we'll just let YouTube pick up the tab whenever we get to that point, right? D. Scott says too many goddamn words. Yeah, it's a lot. So let's talk about some more journal prompts again. Because I missed last week because of my shoulder. I want to make sure we're up to speed with the importance of journaling, that writing down a free flow of consciousness. If you feel like you need to draw pictures, write symbols, whatever it is, that was why I read what Jung said, that your fantasy, your unconscious, your rich imagination is your mythos. So while I can give these prompts and we can kind of talk about, the how of getting through these things, what's going on in your unconscious is you. Okay. Now, according to Jung, we're all connected. Whether you want to look at it from a quantum level, the quantum entanglement, that we are all connected through some sort of quantum matrix, or the way he said it, that we all sort of come from a collective conscious, or even from a spiritual, more Gnostic perspective, you could even say that we are fractals of one consciousness. So however, whichever direction you want to look at, there are specific things from our collective unconscious. Hi, Snowman. I'm so glad you're in here. That's great to see you. So if you want to look at things, however you want to understand for yourself that collective unconscious, yes, we have those archetypes, or like this base knowledge of things that we all sort of share. But think about it this way. If we all have a common knowledge of hero, let's say hero, we all have a sort of common knowledge, base understanding of hero, how we perceive that, how we imagine it in our heads is going to be different based on who I am, each of us are as an individual, right? So when I say hero to you and you imagine a hero in your mind, it may or may not look like what I imagine in my mind. And that's what makes everything individualized, okay? Even something basic is like man. So we all have a collective unconscious understanding of man, of what a man is. But when each one of us imagines the man, it gets layered with our own experiences and our own perceptions and our own visions and what we've been through, those kind of things. And so it looks individual. So as we're going through shadow work and now we're at journals, and so we're trying to have conversations with shadow. Our shadow is just the opposite side of our ego, and our ego is how we present to everybody else, right? So our social media is the perfect example of an ego, right? So how we want to present to somebody, what we want them to think about us is our ego. Okay, that's our ego. The unconscious is the opposite side of that. So if you think about, it's what you don't want people to know about you, where your insecurities are, your faults, your traumas, your vulnerabilities, all those things have to live there. Life lives in balance. So there has to be an equal and opposite going on the inside to counterbalance what goes on the outside. Okay. So we're really caught up. Yay. I'm super glad that Snowman is here. Okay. So a lot of what we've talked about so far has been about our inner child, or what we've experienced in our childhood. And the sole reason for that is because, as Jung said, our shadow is born and starts to develop in our childhood with like our first bad experience, right? Because when we're in utero, there is no bad experience. It is perfection, right? That's heaven. We have no sensory issues. We have no hunger. We have no pain. We have no disappointment. We have no devastation. We have no nothing. And so when we're born and our needs are met, it delays the making of the shadow. But some people's shadow starts as infants, if they're neglected or maltreated in their infancy, then shadow can start then too, even before we have our full sentience, our full consciousness of that there's a world external to ourselves. So that I just wanted to preface that, because the next journal prompt is about childhood trauma. And again, like I've told you before, sometimes we have so much trauma in our childhood that it's a lot. And if you're doing this on your own and you are journaling, or you're doing some of the exercises that we've done, looking in the mirror and talking to our child self, as the adult, just be careful with that. Don't push yourself so hard. Don't put yourself in danger of not being able to handle what comes up. Take breaks as you need them. Have somebody you can talk to, have somebody you can reach out to, because we don't want ever to get to the point of hopelessness and not being able to see a brighter future, or understand that as we're digging into this pain is literally so that we can come out victorious on the other side. Okay. So this journal prompt is childhood trauma, and it is: what experiences did you have as a child that impacted you in a negative way? And I just realized we did this one last time. So hopefully you guys all did it because I remember talking about it. Okay, so skip that one. Next one. This was why the bookmark was there, because I already did it. Okay, fear. So this one is fear. Okay. Oh, Snowman says, I needed to hear that. I have to remember I can't always be go, go, go. Man, what I notice is sometimes when you go, 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 things will happen to make you rest, rest, rest. And then we're like, man, life is happening to me again. Right. And we talked about that in shadow work. Like, are you living life, or is life living you? Is life happening to you, or are you happening to your life? Right. And there needs to be a specific way that we view our life. It's like Freud said, that we will be operating out of all these unconscious processes, and then we call it fate. Right. So we have to remember all things in balance. So when you go, go, go for a while, you need to figure out how to rest, how to take some time. When you're giving to everybody else, you need to figure out how to give to yourself, because we have to maintain balance. That's actually what mental health is. It's balance. It's like I said in the beginning, you can have a gigantic ego. It means you have a gigantic shadow. And a lot of times when that happens, it is out of balance, right? Okay. So fear is this journal prompt. Imagine yourself unafraid. You have no doubts, no worries, no fears of the unknown. The things you used to worry about, they're taken care of. They don't even exist anymore. What would you do if you had no fear, nothing to be afraid of? So I want to state, you guys can put stuff in the comments. It will be seen by us. The only people who can comment are people who are subscribers, but the video does become public after. So, but you are more than welcome to put things into the comment when I ask these questions and these journal prompts. Sometimes that's a way to get started on processing through those emotions. Hi, Mrs. KP Bailey. Thank you for coming in. So this journal prompt is fear. So take a breath, close your eyes, imagine. What would your life look like if there was nothing to fear? Like, where would you be? Like, are you on a beach? Are you in a big, beautiful house that's fully paid for? Are you driving a gorgeous convertible in sunshiny, beautiful weather, and there's just a lovely breeze, and all your bills are paid, all the people you love are doing great. You're not having to work and toil. You're able to find recreation. Like, and these are all just suggestions. So as you imagine that scenario, okay? You're just sitting there and there's literally nothing to fear, nothing to be worried about at all. You're fine. Everything's good. What would you do? D. Scott says no kids. Okay, so they're grown. D, they're grown. Let's say they're grown and they're all doing fantastic, right? Leanne says, I can't imagine being in the world with no chaos. I need something to break. I have no shame in the fact that I am entertained at times to go on an adventure, utilitarian nihilist right here. Sorry. I understand that. And especially when we get to that, what do they call it? Like a black pill nihilist type. We've gotten to that point because we couldn't find peace. Right? So then, because we can't find an extended big chunk of peace, we become nihilistic, right? That's a natural process. So it's probably going to take some more work and sitting and just sitting with that. A lot of times it's good to think about, like, if you had a magic wand, what would you do with it? Right? And if you could do anything, what would you do with it? Now skip some of the nihilistic stuff because I know I know where you're going with it because I know where I might go with it. So but what would you do for yourself? Right? Just simply for yourself. What would you use the magic wand to do? Right? Mrs. KP Bailey says sleep peacefully. Oh, wouldn't that be lovely? Just to have a beautiful night's sleep and you wake up not to an alarm, but to birds chirping and the sun is shining and you feel so rested. Just, man, and you can laze in the bed and stretch and feel the blankets, and it would be just wonderful, right? Hi, Rogish. Thank you for being in here. Okay, so that's a journal prompt. And for some of us, we can imagine it. For some of us, we can't necessarily get to it yet. Everybody's different because we're all living different lives. You know what I mean? I will say for men, it may be a little bit more difficult to not, or to think about what it would be like to not have to worry about something or to have to work and toil, or, those kind of things. So what we're trying to imagine, I'm going to say something that's going to make me laugh, but what we're trying to imagine is drizzle, drizzle. Or as I have some people say, drizzle, drizzle, baby. So that's what we're trying to imagine, is like, if you literally could just sit in a soft moment, what would that be? How would you get there? use the magic wand analogy if you have to. Leon said, I would use it as to charge my external batteries. Got it. D. Scott says dumb things. Yeah. Mrs. KP Bailey, she's with me. We're dreaming about real, rejuvenating rest. It'd be great. Snowman says, I knew that was coming. Drizzle, drizzle. Some people know that there are certain people I try to get to say drizzle, drizzle, baby. And I can't say it like that. So I just sound like me. So, all right. So that's the first journal prompt. Like, no worries, no fears of the unknown, no nothing. Like, what does that look like? This is very telling for what our shadow uses against us. So this is like the opposite of asking, like, who are you, shadow? And what are you made of? And what are my insecurities? And if we can imagine what it's like without all of that, it literally tells us what is lurking in the shadow, like what shadow uses against us in our times where shadow is yelling at us or abusing us to think about things. So this is a actually nicer way to do that, is to use the magic wand or imagine that life, right? So journal that, look at that, talk about that in your journal. Leon says, wait, I would use my magic wand at the lake and make the weather 72 degrees and there would be 1,000 hungry fish in the lake. All right, Leon, you're getting there. Doesn't that sound so peaceful? Just be sitting at the lake and the weather is perfect and the sun is just dancing off of the water. It just smells like nature and outdoors and fresh, clean air, and the fish are biting. And I don't know about you, but then that means a fish fry. So that would make me super happy. Yeah. Snowman says, my journal today that I thought of, I'm finally beginning to be in me and my talents. That's a great one. Some of us, like, to sit in peace means to, like, be in your own body, be yourself, accept yourself for who you are. Quit downplaying yourself. Like, accept all of it, right? Some of us are really used to pointing out our negative qualities because we know them, right? Shadow's yelling all the time about, like, all of our faults and our quirks and our insecurities and all that. And so we know them. And for some reason, every time we get a compliment or somebody says something good, we have to downplay it and dismiss it, right? Or people say, I need to be humble. I need to be humble. Why? Like, literally, why? Why do you need to be humble? Is there a valid reason that makes your life better to not accept your positive qualities? I don't know one. We've all been, there's some conditioning too and some indoctrination that says that, well, you can't ever say something positive about yourself because then that's bragging or you're conceited or you're blah, blah, blah. Well, if I can say all the negative things about myself, well, I for damn sure can say positive things about myself. I can take a compliment. I can say thank you when somebody says something positive to me and gives me a compliment. Like, there's no positive benefit for downplaying myself and then calling it humility. Like, humility is understanding that you have both good and bad qualities. Like, that's humility. Being conceited is thinking you have no bad qualities. Okay. All right. Rogish says, I have no idea because I've been deeply enraged since second grade and haven't had one day of peace from that age. I've had days of less intensity, never total freedom though. Yeah. I get that. Like, it would take a lot of magic thinking, right? To figure out what does that look like. And maybe Rogish and some other people too, it would be better to think about, instead of trying to get to total peace, like what would the first thing you do be? And then what's the second thing? What's the third? Just think about what the steps that you would take, right? And that will start telling you about your inner shadow. Okay. Hi, McDrama Bear. Thank you for coming in. Mrs. KP Bailey says, I would love to be near the water, lake, or ocean, the outdoors, the mountains. I really like trail walking and light hiking. Just watch out for Wyatt, but he's a good boy. Hopefully everybody knows who Wyatt is. But yeah, like a lot of us, to find peace, we need to be in nature and kind of away from others or with people that we trust. Nature is very grounding. This is very grounding. Nina says, you've been trying to teach me that one for a long time. Thank you for getting me there. You're welcome. You're welcome. Leanne says, I don't think we were raised to accept, hey, you did great. I think it's an issue with the intangible compliments. Leon, that's great. And it is. Okay. Maybe we ought to do this. We have 10 people in here. Mrs. KB Bailey says, listen, I'm not fooling with Wyatt. I wouldn't. I don't think he's trustworthy. She also says, never total freedom. I feel like I haven't slept ever. Forever in flight mode for me. Yeah. And Adrian's putting up emojis of Wyatt the bear. Okay. So we have 9 now. Somebody left as soon as I was given a task. I would like for every single person to put in the chat one great thing about them. Don't qualify it. Don't say, well, somebody told me. Just say, I am, or I'm good at, or I have, or start it with I. These are I statements. Say something about you that's great. And here's where I wait for all the chat to catch up. Not letting anybody off the hook for this one. This is a have to, guys. I'm going to be stern. There's a have to. Okay. Say something you're good at. You're positive. Nina says, I am enough. Always, right? Because it's your life and your perception and you're writing your life. So how could you be less? Right? But we all have those moments where I'm not enough, or I'm not worth it, or I'm not worthy, or, oh, one of the worst statements ever. If they wanted to, they would, right? Like, you're always enough because it's your life. You're the star. You are the star. Okay, McDrama Bear says, I never give up. Man, that resiliency, that is so great. Like, knowing that you can be resilient and you don't give up, man, that's amazing. Okay, D. Scott says, I'm a very good photographer. That's amazing. I'm not great at photography. If it wasn't for the iPhone camera, I would not take good pictures. So that's awesome. That's so cool. Okay, Rogish says, I love the fact that I wholeheartedly embrace humanity as something spiritual. Ooh. Ooh. And you know what, Rogish? That is amazing. And when you speak, you can hear it. Like, you can hear that what you're talking about comes from your soul. And that is an amazing thing. Leon says, I'm humorous and funny. Yes, you are. I am great at fixing things. I'm a very good hybrid individual, a real nerd. I love that. Why did nerd become such a negative thing? Right? Like, it's like somebody was sitting around being like, you know what? The smart people, let's make people feel bad and bully them for being really smart about some stuff. Like, that makes no sense. Nerd should be a compliment. Honestly, it means that you're really intelligent and you know a lot about at least one subject. It sounds great to me. That's a great quality, right? BGS says, I know a little bit about a lot of things. That is an understatement about a lot of things. A lot of things, that's an understatement. I would say most things. But yeah, totally true. I know a little bit about a lot of things. You absolutely and some things you know a whole heck of a lot about. That's great. Leon, she said one thing. No, put them all in there. Put them all in there. Heck. Adrian Hicks says, I don't know everything. I know everything else. I like it. And that reminds me of both BGS and Adrian reminds me of that statement of like, I know a little bit about a lot of things and a lot about a little things. Right? Right. Nerd is a negative because it actually does nothing for the needs of the people in the moment. Yeah, in the moment, right? Yeah. Plus, there's a group that wants to be the center of being intelligent above us. I don't disagree with that, right? And so, well, it's like back in, guys, correct me if I get the year wrong, but it's like 1914, I think. A Rothschild was put in charge of creating the education system because like prior to that there was like schoolhouses and all the grades were together and the neighborhood kids all came together and they were taught some things as a group, some things individual by like a specific teacher. And so when the education system started to become government operated, they had, I don't remember what Rothschild, but he was put in charge of kind of laying out and creating the education system. And his statement was, we don't need we don't, or I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers. So that's what that reminds me of about what you just said, Leon, is that our education system was set up to have workers, not thinkers. Leon told McDrama Bear to quit hating. Okay. Yeah. Nina says they want robots. Yeah. And now they're going to get them with AI, right? Did you guys, oh, it's going to be a side note. Here I go off on trails, but did you guys see where they had created that robot and then they put the robot to work and it was something like the robot was going to have to move boxes from one area to the other area, like they had to take him from one sorting and then put it on a conveyor belt or something, and like that was its whole purpose. And they went ahead in the programming and let the robot know that it would continue to do this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week until it stopped working, until it died, essentially, right? And there's a video of this, by the way. The robot committed suicide. So like it did the work for a little bit, and then it was like, once it was told it was going to have to do this until it completely wore out and died, it literally shut itself down. Like it shut down its own programming, because who or what wants to toil day in and day out forever for someone else's benefit? Like nobody wants to do that. That's not what any of us are set up to do. Adrian says, what's wrong with robots? I resemble that remark. Not often. Okay. So, anybody else want to put a positive thing in there? Heck, some of you know each other from other chats. I mean, people were greeting each other. If you have a compliment to give somebody else, put it in there. And if somebody gives you a compliment, thank you, right? Don't dismiss it. Don't downplay it. Don't make a joke about it. Put a compliment in there about other people that you might know in the chat. Okay. So Leanne says, yes, I went to a warehouse in Texas. They have the robots, but let's be real. The cost to maintain those robots is more of a threat to us, more than them being truly effective on the economy. I'm not a tech person at all. So I'm taking your word for all of that, especially because you said you were a nerd. I'm good with that. Okay. While I'm talking, people put some compliments in there. Okay. The next journal prompt is putting yourself last. Okay. Where are you putting yourself last? Man, you know how sometimes you hear something and you're like, the call's coming from inside the house. Where you think, oh, I needed to hear that. Oh, okay. So, where are you putting yourself last? Think of the last time you did this to yourself in an unhealthy way. Why did you put aside your own well being and needs? So, one of the things that I talk to people about is the difference between wants and needs, right? Need is a need to have, right? We have physiological needs, we have emotional needs, we have psychological needs, okay? We have needs that we have to have. Now, an interesting thing about humans is that we can put aside certain needs. Well, we can actually put aside all of our needs for a certain period of time. Now, if we put aside like eating, we will eventually die, eventually. But we can put aside all of our needs for a period of time. And then what happens is we are indoctrinated to sacrifice ourselves on the altar of other people, right? Like we start to view ourselves as a utility for other, right? Like my only usefulness is in what I can do for other people. So then we start to feel selfish if we actually do anything for ourselves. But remember, we talked about balance, right? So what I do for you, I should be willing to do for me. And if I'm so busy doing for everyone else and never doing for myself, then I am inherently out of balance. Okay. McDrama Bear says, roguish, what you said about yourself is definitely true. It totally is. He says, being honest, yes. Don't be dismissive. You got it. Yep. Leon says, I feel like I truly don't get a real vacation. The driving, airport, bags, hotel, finding where to go while she is on vacation. And I feel like a tour guide. I totally get that. Like sometimes when people travel, there's the one that like does all the planning and one that gets to enjoy the vacation, right? I understand that. Roga says it's bothersome at times, but it keeps me hella humble. Look at you saying humble. Okay. So when we talk about wants versus needs, okay, what I tell people is there are certain people in your life whose needs rely upon you, right? Like children. When you have children, their needs are reliant upon you meeting their needs, okay? When you have pets, their needs may rely on you, right? Like because your pets can't go to the store. Like I have dogs. My dogs can't go to the store and buy dog food, right? But if I did like put them out, they could eventually hunt, you know what I mean? But I don't want them to do that and bring home bunnies and stuff. Gross. So there are a small set of people who rely upon you to have their needs met. Those people or your pets, you meet their needs before you meet your wants. This is kind of the same thing as when you're on an airplane, they'll tell you, you know, in the event of turbulence or loss of altitude, the oxygen mask will drop. Put yours on before you put on other people's. Okay. So we're kind of using that as an analogy, wants and needs. You have the people who are dependent upon you or animals. You need to meet their needs before you meet your wants. But you also need to meet your needs when you meet their needs. You see what I'm saying? This is the oxygen mask. If you're meeting other people's needs, you meet your own needs. Because as adults, we need to make sure our needs are met. Nobody else needs to be responsible for another adult's needs being met. All adults should be sentient and independent enough to have their needs met. Do we help each other? Yes, we help. But again, help is a want, not a need. Okay. When we keep wants and needs in mind, again, once the people who are dependent upon you's needs are met and you've met your own needs, then we can look at people's wants. The people who are dependent upon you may have some wants. And you need to make sure your needs are met before you focus on other people's wants, because wants, we kind of extend our sphere, right? Like the friends may want things, or our person may want things, or somebody at work might want something. We can start looking at other people's wants. And if it's something that we are willing to do, we don't have to do. If it's a want, we can if we want to. It doesn't matter. We have to meet our own needs first. So in this scenario, what it's talking about is you're continuously only meeting your bare minimum, or you're sacrificing yourself for other people as part of utility, right? Um, or like an emotional need, right? Like you may have an emotional need to be able to express what you're feeling and say what you're thinking, instead of compartmentalizing and shoving everything way down in there because nobody cares. That's that's a need. That's not a want. But we're kind of taught that to think that way is selfish, to focus on our needs, to want our needs met, to look at what we're needing. We're taught that that is selfish and we shouldn't do that, when it's not. It's not. It's like the oxygen mask. How good are you to other people who rely on you if you don't have your oxygen mask on? If you're not fed, if you're not stable, if you're not able to express yourself, if you haven't ate, right? Like you have to make sure your needs are met. You are the main character of your life, regardless of who's dependent upon you. You are the main character. So what kind of story are we telling where the main character is starving themselves literally and figuratively? Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. So the way it states is, where are you putting yourself last? Think of the last time you did this to yourself in an unhealthy way. And when it says unhealthy, it's talking about like if you have dependence, right? So, if I'm cooking and I have dependence and I realize after I've made the meal or I've used all the food I have that I'm only going to get a little bit, that may be a healthy thing, right? Like feed the kids. I'll take what's left over, right? Because I'll eat next time. So when did you do this in an unhealthy way? Why did you put aside your own well-being and needs? Why did you do that? And really that thought behind the why, again, shows us what the shadow is made of. Like the shadow is made up. You can envision it as an actual shadow, but it's made up of thoughts. That's literally what it's made of. So the thought behind the why did you put aside your own well-being tells you what's in the shadow. Okay. Rogish says, what kind of story is it where the main character is putting themselves last? What a great inquiry. Write the story, right? Especially if you're the one who's putting themselves last. What kind of story are you telling? In the telling of the story of your life, do you want it to be, and she put herself last and worked until the day she retired and then she died? The end. That's a boring story. Like, I wouldn't want to live that story, let alone read it, right? So I want my story to be something different. Maybe I do have to, I mean, obviously I do have to toil every day and I have multiple jobs. So, you know, I do have to work, right? But that's not the central theme of my story, right? This that's just a side note because that's just me meeting needs, right? Like it's I got to pay bills. I got to work, I got to pay bills, right? The way I view it though is I picked the job I picked to help the people I wanted to help. And that fills me up. Okay. Leon says, I put my needs to the side for a minute when my wife went back to college. Kind of. I made her pay some bills to make up the difference. So I guess I would say I put myself last with my son. Yeah. I mean, and it's not wrong to, if an adult goes back to college to still help pay bills, like, oh, that doesn't seem wrong. Um, Putting yourself last with your son. Again, if you have a dependent, like it does change the story, right? A little bit. But our usefulness to our children is not in our amount of sacrifice either. It's in our amount of presence. That's what studies all say. Your presence is worth more than your sacrifice and your utility, right? Kids are going to ask for stuff. They're going to want stuff. They're going to, that's how they are. But they're going to remember the moments that you had together. That's going to be the thing that's most lasting and the thing that gets incorporated into their shadow. Are those positive moments? Then it helps create a healthy ego. Are they negative moments? Then that adds to the shadow. We all got them. So there's no parent shaming around here. No parent is perfect. Our parents weren't perfect. It just, we're talking about things as it is what it is. Okay. Now, all that being said, I did say I was going to leave some time for if anybody had questions, if anybody was playing catch up, if there's any of these concepts where I sound like a woo-woo witch and it doesn't make any sense, then please say so. I want everybody to be up to speed and going where they need to go and understanding why. Okay. Um, Leanne said I made her pay more bills. If you don't have time to cook and fold clothes, well, you can pay to not do it on time. If I lose the time you give, you got to pay for it. Only way I can rationalize it. Listen, that's between you and her. If she agreed, makes sense to me. All right. So I want people to ask questions or whatever is it that may be blocking you, any part of what we're doing that is a struggle or you don't understand why it's important or why I'm saying to do it, because I really want people to understand the things that I'm asking to do are actually really, really important. So if you don't necessarily like buy into journaling or you're like, I'm not a 12-year-old little girl writing in a diary, like that's a block, right? Because journaling is huge. It's huge, literally you having a conversation with your shadow. Like how can shadow work if you can't have the conversation with your shadow? So if you're blocked from that, if there's some thought that's telling you I don't want to do this or this is not important or that's not okay or this is dumb, say so. Listen, I'm not going to take anything personally. Unless you say I look stupid. Well, I still wouldn't take it personally. Right? I'm the main character in my story. Just like you guys are. All right. Yeah, and thank you to BGS for sending people. Hopefully it's helpful. Hopefully people like that they came and that we're doing this work. All right. I didn't see a lot of compliments in there, by the way. Snowman says, I never thought of it that way. So you know what I'm going to do? That's what I'm going to do. All right. So Nina Williams is one of the sweetest people I have ever met. She always has something positive to say. And because I do know her in real life, she gives the best hugs. And she knows that all hugs need to last 20 seconds to create serotonin. And so she makes sure those hugs last 20 seconds, and they are the best hugs. Leon is hilarious, by the way. He has this dry, sarcastic sense of humor. So when he's in chats, you always know it's going to be funny. He's always going to have some quip or something to say that's really hilarious. D. Scott, super supportive, will come in, support people, say hello to people, make people feel welcome. He's around in these chats and on my channel as well. And he's always super nice about it. Snowman is one of the most authentic people, right? Like he is doing some huge shadow work on his channel. I don't even know that he knows that it's shadow work. Snowman, do you know that that's shadow work? He's doing video diary. Okay. So he's literally doing this journaling part. And he's doing it where other people can hear him, right? Like that's such a place of vulnerability and authenticity. It's amazing. It's amazing. Who else is in here? Mrs. KP Bailey. Mrs. KP Bailey okay. Thoughtfulness was what was coming in my head, but she remembers who people are, what people said, who said what, something interesting about them. Like she connects with people, right? And is so thoughtful in that connection. Like she will remember who you are and things you said, right? Like she reminded us about Wyatt and the pup cups and right. Like she's so super thoughtful. Roguish. Listen, if you need to know anything about hip hop or you want to hear some amazing beatboxing that happens while he's speaking, it's so cool. You have to listen to Roguish, right? Like he's just like this font of knowledge. But the like sound effects and the beatboxing while he's speaking is just so entertaining. It's so neat. You guys should go subscribe. It's so cool. All right, who's next? I'll give all of you compliments. McDrama Bear, I don't know you yet, but I love that you give people a hard time. I love that about you already because I love to give people a hard time. And sometimes, especially when you're talking about like heavy stuff or, deep things, really serious things, it's kind of nice for somebody to come in and tease a little bit and kind of make light of things and give people, a hard time a little bit. And so what I can tell about you is that, especially because immediately you're like, I was just teasing, that you are great for relief, right? Like you're paying attention to the vibes, whether you know you are or not, and you know when it's time for a comic relief. Let's see who's next. Adrienne Hicks. Support. The word support is not sufficient for how supportive and dedicated of a person that you are. And I'm going to leave it at that, or I'm going to say other things. Okay. Who else was in here? BGS was in here. I gave BGS compliments because he knows a lot, right? BGS is super dedicated to the space, right? The Black Manosphere space. He is very dedicated to the space, and he's been at it for a very long time. And he has brought a lot of people into the space and has educated a lot of people. And it just would not be the same if he wasn't there. Okay. Did I get everybody? I want to make sure I got everybody. Okay. Nina says, thank you. Love you, sweet pea. Love you, Auntie. Okay. Leon says, can you ask the question again? What was the question I asked? I think you mean the journal prompt, but I don't know. I got off on a tangent of giving people compliments. The journal prompt was, what is fear to you? What makes you afraid? No. Yes. No, putting yourself last. That was the last one we talked about. Where are you putting yourself last? Think of the last time you did this to yourself in an unhealthy way. Why did you put aside your own well-being and needs? Okay. See you, Adrian. Okay. Hopefully everyone accepted those compliments well and didn't have the need or the want or the urge to be dismissive of that or say, oh, it's just this or it's just that. Think about it this way. When somebody gives you a compliment, if you act dismissive of it, you're telling them that they're wrong. Like, is that the thank you that you want to extend when somebody gives you a compliment by telling them that they're wrong? You know, women do this a lot. Well, not all women, but I know a lot of women, myself included. I used to struggle with this. If somebody said you're beautiful, I'd just be like, oh, no, you know, I need to get my hair done. And, you know, I look dumb today. And this, you know, I'll start pointing out flaws, right? Literally telling them they're wrong because they wanted to give me a compliment. Nah, we don't need to do that. Hopefully everybody accepted their compliments well. All right. We are right at an hour. Well, just about. So I'm going to leave it there. Next time, we may do one more round of journal prompts because there's a ton of journal prompts. There's just a ton. And I want to kind of get into these ones that are in the back. So we'll do one more of journal prompts, and then we're going to move into these exercise called the root of your shadow. So we'll do that next time. We'll probably do that a couple times, maybe 3 times, and then we'll have a wrap up, right? And that'll conclude the shadow work. And then if we need to revisit it or do some other kind of work, I'm always open to that too. Experiential might be kind of fun. I'm trying to figure out how to do that on YouTube, but we can make it happen. All right. So I hope everybody has a good Wednesday. For those of you that do come in on the Subscriber's Choice Sunday, this Sunday is entitled Own Your Shit. So we're going to talk a little bit about what I talked about today. And then something BGS wanted me to talk about, which is Carolyn Mays. But it's about taking accountability and being the driver in the seat of your life. And how do you take accountability and responsibility for something that wasn't your fault? So we're going to talk about that on Sunday. I hope that you all can be there. Shout out to the replay gang for tonight. Everybody have a good Wednesday.